In today's video, we have 5 vegetables that you can be planting out in May week 2. Broad beans are looking really good and they've put on so much growth in this lovely warm spell that we've had. And you can see here that we now have pods on these beans. That means that any time that the black fly decides if it wants to attack these, we can just pinch these tops out to stop them being able to land. I'm just finishing off this row of salad onions. If you remember, I said as soon as I put those in, I would sow the next lot of salad onions. They've germinated well, so now they're in their final growing positions. Another variety called Ishikura, which we've grown for the last 2 or 3 seasons now. A lovely salad onion, and nice and long and straight. They don't bulb at the end, just as I like them. Next, I want to transplant some more shallots. Now, these are a different variety shallot. We normally grow the Zabroon, but I thought this year it'd be fun to try some others. And this is a variety called Figaro. It's an F1 variety, and you can see that I've actually multi-sown these, along with some that I've sown singly. And in that way I can judge whether we get more in the space when we multi-sow them, or whether they're better off being grown as single modules. They've grown really well. You can see they've got a nice root system going on there. And we shall pop those into there. And if you want to find out how we get on with these shallots and whether the multi-sown ones give us more harvest in this space or the singles, then do make sure you are subscribed to the channel, because in that way YouTube will notify you whenever we upload a video. And as usual, my ever faithful Poppy is keeping an eye on proceedings and making sure that I'm getting these plants in just right. Next, I want to plant out our courgettes. This is one of the reasons why I said don't sow them too early. Look how large they get. These are not very old plants, and the roots, they're really quite vigorous. Now, this is a variety called Black Beauty, and that's going to go here in the middle. So just make a hole large enough. I have already pre-watered this hole. And set it in at the same height that it was in your pot. Next, I'm going to transplant the Goldina. Now, these are yellow courgettes. And Mrs. W has told me that I must plant just 1 green one in the middle and 2 yellow ones on the end.
Well, it's because you support Norwich City, Barry. It's got to be yellow, green, hasn't it?
I know, you look after me really.
I try. It's difficult, but I try.
I haven't actually grown courgettes in this plot before. This is plot 2, and it is bed 2. Now it does get quite a bit of sunshine in the afternoon, not so much in the morning because the sun always starts behind our house. But what this is, it's really moisture retentive. You can see by my hands, it's really quite damp under there, and courgettes do like to have consistent moisture. So let's get this one in next.
Another yellow.
Another yellow. Pop him in there, and then just backfill. Hopefully we'll get some nice courgettes from them. Now it is important that once you do transplant courgettes that you do water them. They do like lots of water. They don't like to be sitting in it, but they do like the soil consistently moist. And do get a lot of questions from people. I know Dave, he says to me, I grow my courgettes at home and they never seem to come to anything like yours. And I think it is a moisture problem. They do like to be watered. Sometimes you need to water them every other day when it's high summer, just so that they can keep producing their fruits. The other thing is that they are very hungry plants. In the past, myself and Mrs. W, when we didn't have all of the, well, we had a much smaller garden where we were before, where we had the compost heap, we'd pop one in the compost heap while it was maturing. And actually they produce an amazing abundance of harvest when you do that, don't they? So, yeah, that's another thing you can do. Now, if you just look down right at the end of that bed, I'm going to be putting our Market More cucumbers in there. And Mrs. W does need to get a structure in place before I can do that. So she's busily working on that. However, next, it's the turn of another courgette and a new one to us, which is courgette romanesco. And I know we had some comments when I sowed it and they said it's a really lovely courgette. Mrs. W likes it because it looks so different. It's quite ribbed and it looks a bit like a honeyboat squash, doesn't it?
It does, and I do like the look of honeyboat squash, so it's probably just one of those things.
Now, upon doing some further research, I could see that actually it's a vine type courgette, made popular in Italy, and so it should be a good climber. So I'm going to put one in here and let this climb all the way up this pergola. And then we'll see just how good Mrs. W's eyesight really is. Because next door, I'm going to be planting a honeyboat squash in a couple of weeks' time. Next, it's time to put in some more brassicas. Now, I've grown some rodeo red cabbage for Mrs. W, and I also started off, if you remember, some golden acre, which was known as primo. Now, mixed together, they do make a wonderful coleslaw. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually transplant 3 of each in this row. You can see they've built up a lovely root system, so they are ready to go. So let's pop you in there. Always like to plant them deeply. Make sure they're in contact with the soil at all times, and they shall get away. And then what we want is 3 of the golden acre primo. And again, you can see they've got a lovely root system, so they're just waiting to go into the ground and get away. Now, we actually had a really good time at Malvern, didn't we, Mrs. W?
Oh, didn't we just?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Was really great.
Very different, the spring show from the autumn, because we'd only ever been to the autumn one before, hadn't we? So
yeah.
It was lovely to see all the spring flowers and everything. Amazing.
Yeah, and it was lovely to meet all of the exhibitors and other people that were there. It was just absolutely amazing. Next, I'm going to plant up the row for the brassicas that we'll be eating during the month of August. I've already transplanted the June and July brassicas that we'll have, but now it's the time for the August ones. So there's a couple of marathon, those in there. Next is the turn of the Savoy King, and they will be the last Savoy King that we eat this year. If you remember, in our sowing video back in April, I sowed some best of all Savoys. They do better over the autumn month. And it's important that you do select the right varieties to have at the right time. And then last of all, the last of the Skipper cauliflower. Just as the rest, they've got a lovely root system, and in they go. When we actually come to transplant the row for our September brassicas, the cauliflower will change to XL, which again we've already sown. We sowed those in April. And would you bear in mind that these brassicas won't be ready for us to eat until August, I'm going to pop in down the middle some lovely radishes. They're a catch crop, and they will be ready long before these brassicas need the space. They're multi-sown as usual, and they'll keep us supplied with lovely radishes. Next, I want to plant our celeriac. And celeriac want to be about 12 inches apart as a minimum. They can go a little bit further if you want. The more distance you give them within the row, the bigger the eventual root will be. And then we want to get our celery in. A celery, this particular kind anyway, which is a self-planting kind, they need to be planted in blocks so that they blanch. You can get a trenching variety, but that's an awful lot of work. This is much easier, and so long as you do plant them in the blocks, set at about 9 inches each way, you'll be absolutely fine. Now the trick with celery is to not ever let them dry out. They never want to be sitting in water. That's why when they grow in the wild they're near a water's edge. Boggy conditions is what they like, marsh conditions. Not to be absolutely sitting in a pool of water. But equally, don't ever let them dry out. With the celeriac, it's not as vital to keep them watered at all times like you do the celery. But when it comes to harvest time, or as you're approaching harvest time, so let's say we'll be harvesting these in October, so from September, that's a really good time to water them because it helps the root swell up. Now those of you that are quite eagle-eyed when we make our videos, you may well have noticed that every time we film, you'll see that our shed door is permanently open. Now there's a reason for that. A few weeks back, myself and Mrs. W, we thought perhaps we had a pest in the shed. So we decided to move her wildlife camera from where we had it at the pergola and into the shed to see if we could see if we did indeed have a pest. But to our surprise, actually, it's a pair of robins that have nested in there. As soon as we realised, we took all the tools out that we thought we were going to need, and we haven't been in that shed since for fear of disturbing them and the mothers abandon the nest. But as you can see here, I'm very glad to report that they didn't abandon the nest, and you can see there's some hungry beaks there wanting food. The bluebells look so pretty.
They are lovely, aren't they?
It's hard to think of anything more British than bluebells when they come out in May. And also I can hear the distant hum of the bees that are dancing around this comfrey. That's food for these early foragers that come out early in the year. But it also means that we can make some nice comfrey feed. If you like this video, do give us a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We upload twice a week, and so that you don't miss anything, YouTube will then notify you whenever we upload a video. It's not too late to still be sowing some vegetables. May is a really good month to be sowing. Some people indeed can't sow anything until May, simply because of the climate they live in. But if you want a bit of a steer on what you could be sowing during the month of May, then watch this video next. Have a great rest of your gardening week, and we shall see you soon.